Hello and welcome to Firstpost Spotlight, where we get you the top stories from the continent and across the world. I'm Alison LaGrange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. Now, India and the United States hold first in-person trade talks since Donald Trump's 50% tariffs against New Delhi. The discussions aim to resolve challenges arising from the high levies against India. Russia's strategic Tu-160 bomber planes launched cruise missiles over the Barents Sea during joint military exercises with Belarus, as the two allies wrap up 5 days of war games in a show of force against the West. A UN Commission of Inquiry concludes that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza and accuses senior Israeli officials, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, of inciting it. For the first time in nearly 30 years, the US has decertified Colombia as an ally in the fight against drugs, a decision that could cost Bogota hundreds of millions of dollars in military support. And police in East Timor fired tear gas at protesters, mostly students, as they hit the streets against the government's plan to buy new cars for lawmakers, which has become a major flashpoint in one of the poorest countries in Southeast Asia. Hello and welcome. Let's start with the tensions simmering in the South China Sea. China and the Philippines have yet again clashed in the disputed waters. The latest encounter took place near the Scarborough Shoal. Chinese Coast Guard fired water cannons at Philippine vessels near the hotly contested shoal. As per the Chinese statement, the encounter involved more than 10 Philippine ships. China accused the Philippine vessels of illegally invading its territorial waters, despite repeated warnings. Beijing also said that one of the Philippine ships deliberately rammed a Chinese Coast Guard vessel. Now, following the incident, Beijing defended the use of water cannons on Philippine ships.
Huangyan Island is China's inherent territory. Multiple Philippine government vessels illegally intruded into the waters of Huangyan Island, gravely violating China's sovereignty and rights and seriously undermining peace and stability at sea. China's necessary measures to safeguard its territorial sovereignty and maritime rights and interests are indisputable. The facts once again prove that the Philippines' deliberate infringement and provocations at sea are the root cause of tensions. The Philippine side should immediately cease such infringements and provocations and must not test China's firm resolve to safeguard its legitimate rights and interests.
While China has solely blamed the Philippines for the incident, Manila has dismissed Beijing's account as another case of Chinese disinformation and propaganda. Beijing and Manila have long been at odds over the Scarborough Shoal. China took control of the shoal in 2012, claiming that it is Beijing's ancestral territory since the 13th century, whereas the Philippines insists the shoal lies within its exclusive economic zone. The two countries have different names for the shoal. The Chinese call it the Huanggang Island, whereas the Filipinos call it the Panatag Shoal. The tensions have simmered for a while at the disputed shoal, and multiple incidents in recent years have caused diplomatic rows. Now, these encounters included firing water cannons, boat ramming, and what the Philippines considers dangerously close maneuvers by Chinese Coast Guard and jets shadowing Philippine aircraft over the shoal. Both Beijing and Manila have accused each other of provocations and trespassing. Tensions escalated last week after China approved a plan to build a nature reserve at the shoal. Manila has condemned Beijing's plans, and so has its ally Washington. Now, over the weekend, the Philippines, Japan, and the US conducted joint exercises in the region. This irked China, and it warned the Philippines to cease the provocative incidents. Since taking office in 2022, Philippine President Ferdinand Jr. has boosted ties with the US and other allies to counter China's expansive maritime claims in the South China Sea. China claims almost the entire strategic waterway, overlapping the exclusive economic zones of Brunei, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, and Vietnam. Each year, trillions of dollars in global trade passes through these strategic waterway. Unresolved disputes have festered for years over ownership of various islands and features. In 2016, the Permanent Court of Arbitration ruled that China's broad South China Sea claims violated international law, but Beijing rejected the ruling. While Manila has Washington's backing, Beijing continues to press ahead with its expansive claims in the disputed waters. Now, it remains to be seen how China's plan to build a nature reserve at the disputed shoal further heightens tensions in the South China Sea. And shifting our focus to West Asia now, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel is facing international and economic isolation and blamed Qatar, China, and migration in Europe for driving it. At a finance ministry conference in Jerusalem, Netanyahu said that Israel was facing increasing economic isolation due to the Gaza war. He also noted that Israel would have to become more self-reliant, reportedly adding that Israel could face weapons embargoes and economic sanctions. Later, speaking to a delegation of the US state legislators at the Foreign Ministry, Netanyahu accused Doha and Beijing of leading an online campaign against Israel's legitimacy.
Thank you. Democrats and Republicans alike, we value and cherish your support, and there is an active effort to erode it. One is China, and the other is Qatar, and they are organizing an attack on Israel's legitimacy in the social media of the Western world and the United States. We will have to counter it, and we will counter it with our own efforts.
Now, Netanyahu's comments came as European pressure on Israel continues to grow over a war that is nearly 2 years old. Countries including the UK, France, and Belgium have announced that they will recognize a Palestinian state at the upcoming United Nations General Assembly. But despite support draining away elsewhere, the United States remains Israel's most important ally. On Monday, Netanyahu hosted U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio in Jerusalem. Rubio vowed that Washington would provide, quote-unquote, unwavering support to Israel in achieving its goals in Gaza, as he called for the eradication of Hamas.
And the people of Gaza deserve a better future, but that better future cannot begin until Hamas is eliminated. That better future and that kind of peace is not even possible until the hostages are released, all of them, every single one. And so that's what we continue to be focused on. That's what the President wants to see happen, and that's what you can count on our unwavering support and commitment to see come to fruition.
However, Washington now faces a delicate balancing act. Two of its allies, Israel and Qatar, are at loggerheads with each other. This is after Israel struck Hamas leaders on Qatari soil last week, prompting strong condemnation from Doha. This has left the United States navigating between two strategic partners, each vital to its interests in the region. On one hand, Israel relies on American diplomatic cover and military supplies. On the other, Qatar remains a critical U.S. partner, hosting the region's largest American airbase, Al Udeid, which is the forward base of the U.S. Central Command. After concluding his Israel visit, Rubio flew straight to Doha earlier today. On his way to Qatar, Rubio said Doha should continue its role as a mediator between Israel and Hamas.
Obviously, they have to decide if they want to do that after last week or not. But we want them to know that if there's any country in the world that can help, end this through a negotiation, it's Qatar, and we appreciate that. And if there's a chance to do it, we want to encourage them to do it.
Rubio's arrival also came just a day after an emergency Arab-Islamic summit in the Qatari capital, where regional leaders condemned Israel's strikes on Hamas officials in Doha. Arab and Muslim leaders also called for a review of ties with Israel and urged the U.S. to use its leverage to rein in Tel Aviv.
We also expect our strategic partners in the United States to use their influence on Israel in order for it to stop this behavior. We really do expect that. They have leverage and influence on Israel, and it's about time that this leverage and influence to be used.
U.S. President Trump on Monday repeated his assertion that Israel would not be striking Qatar again. Yet, despite that, as tensions escalate between Israel and Qatar, the question remains: how long can Washington support both allies without jeopardizing its own strategic interests in the region? And the Indian Navy is stepping up its anti-submarine capabilities. A new warship built entirely in India has been inducted. The ship is named Androth, and it is the second in a series of 8 anti-submarine warfare shallow watercraft. The Indian Navy officially received Androth on Saturday. The warship is designed to operate in shallow waters. It is constructed by Garden Reach Shipbuilders and Engineers, or the GRSC, in Kolkata. The vessel represents a step forward in India's pursuit of homegrown naval capabilities. The induction of Androth comes at a time when China's naval activity in the Indian Ocean is on the rise. Adding strategic urgency to India's maritime preparedness, now, the ship will play a crucial role in coastal surveillance and anti-submarine operations. It will strengthen the Navy's ability to detect and neutralize underwater threats near India's shores. The name Androth is inspired by Androth Island in the Lakshadweep archipelago, and that shows India's commitment to protecting its extensive maritime territories. Now, they are apparently 77 meters in length and the largest Indian Navy warships propelled by diesel. They are also equipped with state-of-the-art lightweight torpedoes, the indigenous anti-submarine warfare rockets, and advanced shallow water sonar. Androth is designed to operate in coastal waters where submarines may attempt to penetrate undetected. Now, what sets Androth apart is not just its firepower, but its domestic pedigree. Over 80% of the ship's components are indigenous. It is a reflection of the government's Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative. And defense experts see this as a signal that India's domestic shipbuilding industry is maturing, and it is reducing reliance on foreign imports. The delivery of Androth is a testament to India's growing capabilities in indigenous shipbuilding. Now, that is what the Navy said in an official statement. Its strength, operational readiness, while showcasing India's commitment to self-reliance. Another anti-submarine ship commissioned back in June was the Arnala, which is named after the Arnala Fort in Maharashtra, and this was the first indigenous anti-submarine shallow water craft commissioned into the Navy. The Indian Navy has ambitious plans of becoming the Atmanirbhar by 2047, meaning completely self-reliant. Now, this means 100% domestic production, and warships like Androth mark a major progress toward that mission. And staying on with the Indian subcontinent, China has thrown open its secret military complex to visiting Pakistani President Asif Ali Zardari, who is also the constitutional head of the Pakistani military. Now, in a rare diplomatic gesture, Pakistan's President Zardari was given a tour of the headquarters of the Aviation Industry Corporation of China, or the AVIC, in Chengdu. Zardari is the first foreign head of state to receive such a tour, during which he pushed for joint defense production between Pakistan and China. The Pakistani president was also given a special briefing on China's most advanced military hardware and fighter jets, and this included China's advanced J-10 fighter jet. He was also briefed on the JF-17 Thunder, a fourth-generation lightweight multi-role fighter co-produced by China and Pakistan. Though Pakistan boasts of these jets co-produced with China, in a stunning display of India's air superiority, its air defences shot down 2 of the JF-17s in May of this year, when the Pakistani jets tried to intrude into the Indian airspace. Now, this was after India launched Operation Sindoor in response to the Pahalgam terror attack, which led to a 4-day intense conflict between the two neighbours. In Chengdu, Asif Ali Zardari was also briefed on the progress in the J-20 stealth fighter aircraft. Zardari was accompanied by his daughter and Pakistan's First Lady, Asifa Bhutto Zardari, and his son and the President of Pakistan People's Party, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari. In its statement, the Chinese Foreign Ministry downplayed Zardari's visit to the AVIC and instead focused on his support for global security cooperation, which Beijing projects as a counterweight to America's global dominance. Now, earlier this month, Pakistan's Army Chief Field Marshal Asim Munir visited Beijing, where he met with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and the Army Chief also attended the Shanghai Cooperation Summit in Tianjin, and later they attended China's Grand Military Parade. Now Zardari is on a 10-day visit to China. These shuttle visits by Pakistan's top leadership to China are being widely seen as an attempt by Islamabad to look for replenishments for losses suffered during Operation Sindoor. On the 7th of May, India launched precision strikes targeting terror infrastructure in Pakistan and in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. After 4 days of cross-border shelling, artillery firing, missile and drone strikes, the two sides reached an understanding on the 10th of May to end the conflict. India has said that Operation Sindoor has not ended, only paused, and will resume in case of any misadventure by Pakistan. According to a recent report by Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, China supplied over 81% of Pakistan's military hardware in the last 4 years, which Pakistani military sought to use against India during the recent conflict. From 2020 to 2024, almost 2/3 of China's arms exports went just to one state, Pakistan. But can Pakistan really afford these weapons anymore? It has a long shopping list for arms, but its wallets are near empty and its economy heavily bruised. India has repeatedly cautioned Pakistan's arms purchases go up with every loan it gets, and loans are what its economy is surviving on. So what exactly is Pakistan aiming for with these flurry of visits to China? Moral support, arms, or just window shopping? And that's all we have on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to Firstpost.
From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, shedding light on the world's top headlines, detailed analysis on the stories that matter the most to you. Catch it all on Spotlight at 6 p.m. India time and 12:30 GMT, only on Firstpost.
Hello and a very warm welcome. I am Gurjeen Garland and you're watching Firstpost. In the next few minutes, I get you the top 40 updates from around the world, only here on Fast and Factual. Let's get started. We begin with the latest from South Asia. India and the United States returned to the negotiating table in New Delhi today. Weeks after President Donald Trump imposed 50% tariffs on Indian exports over what Washington claimed was New Delhi's purchase of Russian oil. U.S. Trade Representative for South Asian Brendan Lynch led the American side, while senior